So in the level 0, all P0 test cases, sanity or stable build. In the level 1, all P0, P1, P2 as batches, and that becomes as a test suit. So where you have that build is a comprehensive build. In the comprehensive build, if you find any mismatches, we are going to send to the developer. Developer is going to resolve it. And once you get the modified build, we are going to do the retesting part. That becomes as a retesting. And the last one is in the level 3, if you are going to check the entire whole build along with the modifications, that becomes as a regression build, complete or master build. Complete or master build. So how many types of levels of builds are there? The first one is initial build. The first one is initial build. Initial build. Second one is stable build. Comprehensive build. Next one is retesting build, and the last one is regression or complete or master build. So these are all the levels of builds which we are going to get. So initial build, stable build, comprehensive build, retesting build, and regression or complete or master build. So this is called as a levels versus builds. Levels versus builds. Next, types of defects. Types of defects. So how many types of defects we are having? The first defect is called as UI defect. We'll call it as UI defect. That is user interface defect. So like spelling mistakes, overlapping, alignment, font, color, window size, links enabled or disabled, invalid links. Those are comes under UI test cases. That is wrong alignment, wrong alignment, wrong alignment, overlapping, color of the window, size of the window. All these will comes under UI test case. Comes under UI. This is a user interface. The second one is input domain defect. Second one is input domain defect. What is input domain defect? Like out of range, valid terms. Actually, it should accept 10 characters. If beyond that, out of range values will always be called as input domain defect. So out of range will call it as a out of range defect, or accepting valid range or not accepting invalid range. So accepting invalid range or not accepting valid range, those comes under input domain. So 10 characters accept child. For example, 10 characters accept child, but it is accepting 11th character, 12th character. That is also fail. It should accept. It should not accept. The accept chases to 11th character, 12th character, 13th character. How the out of range అయిపోతుంది. దాని ఏమంటామంటే input domain అంటాం. Now, when you come to the test cases, we have already discussed this input domain, like boundary value analysis, equivalence class partition. What does the boundary value analysis explains? What are the type, range, expected values, actual values. Those things will come under. In the ECP, equivalence class partition, which mainly explains about what are the valid terms and what are the invalid terms, that will come under. So out of range will always comes under input domain test cases. So UI test cases and input domain test cases. Have you noted down? I think so. Okay. So UI and input domain. The next one is called as database defect. For example, you want to register Yahoo. First name, last name, email ID, contact number, address, everything. Whatever you have been performed in the front end, if it is not stored in the backend server, then it's called database defect. So next time when you want to log in, the username and password is not recognizing since it's not been stored in your database. So that is called as database defect. We call it as a database defect. UI defect, input domain defect. Next, user UI defect, input domain defect, and the third one is database defect. Called as a database defect. Database defect. Impact of front end operations, not impact of front end operations to back end is called as a database defect. So not accepting or not storing the user inputs in backend or not impact of front end operations to backend contents. So to backend contents, that's it. So whatever you are going to store, whatever the operations will be performed in the front end, if it is not stored in the backend, that is called database defect. That's called data UI defect, input domain defect, and the third one is database. The next one is called as error handling or exception handling. You usually know that in Java we usually work with the exception handling like try, catch, plot. In the try, we are going to write the actual code. Catch, what kind of exception you are going to get. And in throw, it shows that whether it is an input value is true or false and what kind of error we are getting out. And the result will be displayed in your throw. So try, catch, block, actually block. Here we use when you perform the front end, there it stores, if it is not stored in the back end, that is called database defect. So we usually know when you work with an exception handling, there are 4 kinds of exceptions handlings are there. One is arithmetical exception, array out of bound exception, file not found exception, array out. So all these are different kinds of exceptions which you find in your Java. Here also the same thing. When you perform operations in a front end, if it is not stored in the back end, that is called as a database defect. Third one. And the fourth one is exception handling. What do you mean by exception handling? If it is accepting invalid inputs, if it is accepting invalid pop-ups, username invalid, password okay, password is valid password. If you click on that, if it is accepting, if it means that it is going to the main page, that is an exception. అంటే మీరు ఇచ్చిన ఇన్వాలిడ్ యూజర్ నేమ్ కానీ వ్యాలిడ్ పాస్వర్డ్ ఇచ్చినా కూడా యాక్సెప్ట్ చేసేస్తున్నకోండి, దాన్ని ఏమంటామంటే ఎక్సెప్షన్ హ్యాండ్లింగ్ అంటాం. ఒకవేళ 2 వ్యాలిడ్ టర్మ్స్ ఇచ్చి క్లిక్ చేశాను అనుకోండి, ఒకవేళ వెళ్ళలేదనుకోండి, అప్పుడు దాన్ని కూడా మనం ఎక్సెప్షన్ అంటాం. ఈవెన్ ఇఫ్ యూ గివ్ ద వ్యాలిడ్ ఇన్పుట్స్, ఇఫ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ నాట్ యాక్సెప్టింగ్, దట్ ఈస్ అన్ ఎక్సెప్షన్. ఇఫ్ యూ గివ్ ఇన్వాలిడ్ ఇన్పుట్స్, ఇఫ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ యాక్సెప్టెడ్, దట్ ఈస్ అన్ ఎక్సెప్షన్ హ్యాండ్లింగ్. సో ఇక్కడ ఇందులో ఏంటంటే ఎక్సెప్షన్ హ్యాండ్లింగ్, ఎక్సెప్షన్ డిఫెక్ట్ అంటాం. సో UI defect, input domain defect, database defect, exception handling defect. This is the fourth one which you are going to work on that. Now, the next one is application load defect. The next one is application load defect. Application load defect. What do you mean by application load defect? If your application is not supporting, if the application is not supporting with multiple users, for example, we'll consider as IRCTC website. In IRCTC website, any number of users can access. వాళ్ళు login అవ్వచ్చు, tickets availability check చేసుకోవచ్చు, they can book the tickets, they can get the payment, and they can get the receipts, and they can log out. So this procedure can be done any number of unlimited users which are working on IRCTC website. But when you come to the application load defect is, application should support with 1,000 users per day, for example. But the application is supporting only with 90, 100 users. The application is supporting only 100 users. Then in that case, we use application load defect. Application load mean that application is not supporting with limited users is a application load defect. So not supporting with multiple users, with limited users, we can say that with limited users is known as application load defect. Next one is race conditional defect. Race conditional mean that if the application should support multiple operating system like Windows 7, Windows 8, Mac, Unix, Linux, but your application is supporting only Windows and other operating systems are not supporting, then in that case we say that as a race conditional defect. We'll say it as a race conditional defect. దీనికి డిఫరెన్స్ ఏంటండి అంటే, ఈ అప్లికేషన్ అనేది నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ యూజర్స్ ని సపోర్ట్ చేయట్లేదు, లిమిటెడ్ యూజర్స్ మాత్రమే కావాలి, ఆ లిమిటెడ్ యూజర్స్ కూడా సపోర్ట్ చేయట్లేదు అనుకోండి, దాని అప్లికేషన్ అంటే. రేస్ కండిషనల్ అంటే అప్లికేషన్ షుడ్ వర్క్ ఆన్ మల్టిపుల్ ఆపరేటింగ్ సిస్టమ్, బట్ ఇట్ ఈస్ నాట్ వర్కింగ్ ఆన్ మల్టిపుల్ ఆపరేటింగ్ సిస్టమ్. విండోస్ 7, విండోస్ 8 అన్ని ఆపరేటింగ్ సిస్టమ్ వర్క్ చేయాలనుకోండి, అది సపోర్ట్ చేయట్లేదు అనుకోండి, ఏదో ఒక్కొక్క ఆపరేటింగ్ సిస్టమ్ సపోర్ట్ చేస్తాం అనుకోండి, దాన్ని విల్ కాల్డ్ యాజ్ ఏ రేస్ కండిషన్. సో not supporting with multiple operating systems, so in that case we'll say it as a race conditional defect. So application defect, race condition. The last one is called as a manual support defect. So what do you mean by manual support defect? For example, you're working on Yahoo page. Every page will have a help document, user guidance. ఏ పేజ్ ఓపెన్ చేస్తే మనకి హెల్ప్ అనేది ఉంటుంది, రైట్ సైడ్ కార్నర్ లో హెల్ప్కి వెళ్ళి మీ వర్షన్ ఏం యూస్ చేస్తున్నారు, మీ ఫైల్ ని సేవ్ చేద్దాం అనుకున్నావా, ఫైల్ ని ఎడిట్ చేద్దాం అనుకున్నామా, న్యూ పేజ్ న్యూ ట్యాబ్ ఓపెన్ చేద్దాం అన్నామా, అలాంటి ఆప్షన్స్ అన్ని ఉంటాయి అన్నమాట. హెల్ప్ అనేది సెలెక్ట్ చేసుకుంటే ఆ హెల్ప్ దేనికి యూస్ చేస్తుంది, మీరు ఏ వర్షన్ యూస్ చేస్తున్నారు, ఆ వర్షన్ సంబంధించిన డిస్క్రిప్షన్, ఆ హెల్ప్ సంబంధించిన డాక్యుమెంటేషన్ అంతా ఉంటుంది అన్నమాట. సో యు ఆర్ వర్కింగ్ ఆన్ యాహూ పేజ్, but when you go for help document, if you find some other application document, something like if it is opened with Gmail application, Gmail documentation undanukondi, then we'll call it as a manual support. So invalid documentation for the user guidance is called as manual support. So invalid help document for the required functionality is known as so invalid help document for the required functionality is nothing but manual support defect. Race conditional ante multiple operating system support చేయకపోతే దాన్ని అంటారు. అప్లికేషన్ లోడ్ అంటే ఏంటంటే నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ యూజర్స్ ని సపోర్ట్ చేయట్లేదు కాబట్టి దాన్ని మనం ఏమంటాం application load defect. So how many types of applications defects are there? One is UI defect, input domain defect, database defect, exception handling defect, application load defect, race conditional defect, and the last one is manual support defect. So these are all the types of defects we find in testing. Okay, These are the types of testings, defects we'll find in your testing part. Okay, have you all noted down? Okay, okay. So that we'll see it now. 1 second. I will just design the box. You just note down this box. UI. Input domain. Input domain. Database. Database. Exceptional defect. Next. Application load defect. Application load defect. Next. Race conditional defect. Race conditional defect. And the last one is manual support defect. Manual support defect. UI is usability. UI is usability. Second one is, which comes under the functionality. ఇది కూడా ఫంక్షనాలిటీ, డేటాబేస్ కూడా ఫంక్షనాలిటీ కింద వస్తుంది. థర్డ్ వన్ ఎక్సెప్షన్ హ్యాండ్లింగ్ కూడా, ఇది కూడా ఫంక్షనాలిటీ డిఫెక్టే. ఫంక్షనాలిటీ డిఫెక్టే. ఈ అప్లికేషన్ లోడ్ డిఫెక్ట్ అనేది పర్ఫార్మెన్స్ డిఫెక్ట్ కింద వస్తుందంట. పర్ఫార్మెన్స్ డిఫెక్ట్. నెక్స్ట్ రేస్ కండిషనల్ కూడా, విచ్ కమ్స్ అండర్ పర్ఫార్మెన్స్ డిఫెక్ట్. పర్ఫార్మెన్స్ డిఫెక్ట్. And the last one, manual support, will comes under UI defect. UI defect. Okay na? Ila remember cheskondi. Easiest ga ayipotundi. So emem unnai? UI defect. First one is UI defect. UI defect, which is a usability. Input domain defect, functionality. Database defect, functionality. Exception defect, functionality. Application load defect, performance. Application load defect, performance. Next, race conditional, performance. Manual support, UI test case. UI defect. UI defect. All these will comes under, these are all the types of defects to find in testing part. All these will comes under testing part. So okay na? So these are all the types of, we called as types of defects. Types of defects. Types of defects. So this is the overall part of your manual testing. So as we already studied up, what are the things we have studied up? Software development life cycle, the white box testing, black box testing, and we have studied about software development lifecycle models. We learned with software testing. So we already studied with the software testing lifecycle. Like what I remember, how test plan, test policy, test cases, test execution, defect report, defect submissions. Later on, we studied up how to prepare your scenarios, how you are going to write your test cases, executions. Later on, we studied up the priorities and severities, defect lifecycle, type defect report, types of defects. All these will comes under manual testing. Right at the moment, we have studied up how to write the test case in Excel sheet. So we can write the same test cases in other tool called as a test management tool called test lodge. It's called as a test lodge, where we are going to write all, you are going to create your requirements. We are going to prepare your test plan. We are going to write your test cases, execution, defect report, and defect submission. So we will see that in this tool called as a test management tool called as a test lodge. Called as a test lodge. So whatever the things we have prepared in the Excel sheet, We can also do the same thing in a tool called as a test management tool called as test lodge. We call it as a test lodge. This test lodge is a reporting tool. It is a test management tool. It is not a 30 days trial version. First of all, what we need to do is we need to register, and with that registration, we can work for 30 days. After 30 days, again, we need to uninstall it. Again, we need to install it. This is a trial version tool. Now, this test is a lodge is a we called as a test management tool. We called as a test management tool, where we can create your requirements. We can prepare your test plan documentation. Next, we can create your test cases, and we can generate the reports. Finally, defect submission. So these are the things which we can control or which you can maintain in this tool called as a test lodge. Okay, we give you a test lodge. So in this test lodge tool, I'll show you first how we are going to register it. Later on, how we are going to create your project, how we are going to create your requirements, how we are going to create your test plan, how we are going to link up your test plan to your test cases, and how you are going to execute your test cases, defect reports, defect submission, and so this is the overall part of your test management tool called test lodge. Okay, just take 10 minutes break and we'll continue after 10 minutes. Okay, thank you.